What's up guys, it's Jeff with iDownload Blog. Comparing the iPad with the Microsoft Surface. This is just a unscientific size and dimensions comparison, not going to compare hardware specs or software or anything like that. Notice the bezel. They're about the same on the edge of the Surface and on the edge of the iPad 3. This is the iPad 3. So the bezel is fairly similar to on both. You have home buttons on both devices. One is capacitive, of course, with the Surface, and one is mechanical with the iPad. And the width, or I guess that's the length of the Surface, you can see it's much longer than the iPad. The screen is, and the device itself is longer than the iPad. But then the iPad is wider than the Surface, so they kind of trade off there. Notice this. See how much wider the iPad is in general, and as far as screen size is concerned, there is a much wider screen on the iPad 3. And this shot right here really gives you a good indication as to how skinny the Surface is compared to the iPad and how tall the Surface is compared to the iPad. So there's quite a bit of difference, and of course the Surface has a 16:9 aspect ratio as well. When it comes to weight, people automatically think that the Surface is this huge hulking device that is just too heavy to hold, but really that's not the truth. The iPad 3 weighs 1.44 pounds and the Surface weighs 1.5 pounds, so the difference really is negligible. In fact, it almost seems like the Surface is about the same weight because of the way the weight is distributed. Now, holding the device, you see how I was able to hold that in one hand? With the iPad, I really have to struggle to hold that. I have big hands, obviously, but I really have to struggle to try to hold that with one hand. With this, it's fairly easy. I can just hold this up with one hand with no problem and have total confidence that it won't drop out of my hand. So I had to pull out the digital caliper, and obviously this isn't scientific. I didn't meticulously make sure the measurements were correct, but it's a good ballpark figure. 9.83 millimeters for the Surface. Let's hop over to the iPad and let's measure here. So I'm getting about 9 points, and again, this isn't scientific. I just loosely measured it, 9.56 millimeters. I haven't checked the actual stats on Apple's website and Microsoft's website, but as you can see, they're not too different as far as the depth of the device, or the weight for that matter. The main difference you're going to have here is just the size differences as far as the height and the width of each device. They're just drastically different proportions. Now, whether or not one is better than the other as far as the proportions and the dimensions of each device is concerned, well, I think that's really kind of subjective. I mean, Microsoft made their device the way it is because it's more of a laptop hybrid tablet than anything. The iPad obviously is just a pure tablet in the pure sense of the form. So Microsoft felt they needed to make their dimensions wider and skinnier to fit their purpose, and Apple has their thing going on, of course, and they're very successful at what they do. So I like both. What about you? What do you think? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. This is Jeff with iDownload Blog.